Hello and welcome to my chess video on my favourite chess opening as white, the Scotch opening. I want to show the mainline Scotch moves at opening and then several of the variations that black can play from there, the common variations that white faces. So white starts with e4, which I always like. If black responds with e5, white can play knight f3 attacking the e-pawn, and black can play knight c6 defending the black e-pawn. Now the Scotch is reached with a straightforward and direct thrust in the centre, playing 3d4, and it's been shown by experience and analysis that the best move for black is simply to take back when white will take back, and that is the mainline Scotch main moves. And from here the Scotch has many variations, and I want to show the common ones that can occur. So I'm going to start off with the very obvious one. Black can immediately take the white knight and lose his knight when the queen takes back, white queen takes back on d4. This is known as the Ghoulam-Cassim variation, and as you can see is a very simple opening. A master game to study from here would be Nimzowitsch versus Baird in the 1900s. It was a white win for Nimzowitsch, very instructive. And here I'd just very like to show one of my games, just to show the flavour of this. A recent win of mine in the Ghoulam-Cassim variation. Just open it up from my Scotch Ghoulam-Cassim folder. And play through this very quickly. Slightly different move order to reach the Scotch, but the Scotch is reached. Ghoulam-Cassim variation, I have to get my queen safe, and then both sides have to develop. And I get into a better position. Black doesn't play so well, allows a fork on his queen and rook. I take off the rook for the bishop, and I'm up in material, and I have a better position, and my opponent resigns at that stage because I have more material, and I've definitely got a winning game here if I play normally. And the Scotch Ghoulam-Cassim variation, it relies on white and black developing well and playing a good mid and end game, and whoever does that best will win the match. And that's the same for most chess openings, I guess, except that the Ghoulam-Cassim variation is a very simple opening. Let's show the Scotch again and show a more complex opening, another opening that can arise from the Scotch position. So there's the main Scotch moves. Now a better move for black and a more common move is knight f6, a developing move, and here white can play knight c3 to protect the pawn. This leads to the Scotch-Smith variation, known as the Scotch-Smith variation, and here again I can load an example game, which is Askapovich versus Golosov from 1967. Just get that on, and this is a good white win in the Smith variation. So Askapovich is white and Golosov black. There's the Scotch, and now the Scotch Smith variation. Askapovich keeps developing, and now eyes up this weakness on f7. Puts a check in with the bishop on and bishop sack on f7, and follows it up with a queen sacrifice and a very nice finish now. Knight to h6. This threatening mate on f7, but there's absolutely nothing black can do to stop a mate, because if he plays his pawn down, queen f7 or queen g8 is mate. If he takes the knight with the pawn, then simply Askapovich recaptures the pawn, and that is a check from the white bishop there, and it's a checkmate check because the flight squares are covered. So that's a dramatic win in the Scotch-Smith variation. It's just interesting to know the possibilities that arise in situations if black doesn't play so well. So that was that variation. Now I want to show another variation, the Miezes variation. This does arise when black plays knight f6 again. This time white directly takes off the black knight at c6 and is threatening to take off the black queen. So black has to deal with the white knight and take it off, and the best way is with the b pawn. If black took with the d pawn, white could come up and take off the black queen, and the king would need to take off the white queen out of check, and the king would not be able to castle and would be stuck in the centre. And here also taking with the b pawn has allowed a half open file for black's rook to come on later on in the game. So that's the best way to play. But white continues the Miesi's variation and attacks the black knight. With the black knight will either have to move, or a better move is queen to pin the pawn here. It's pinned to the king, it can't move because check arises. So white has to unbreak the pin, and the best way is to make the queens face off, and now black does have to move his knight, and white will go on and harry that knight, and further moves like this develop. This was seen by Kasparov. Kasparov played this well, especially in his World Championship match against Karpov. Exciting game. He had a win and a draw in that, which was quite good. So that's the Miesi's variation. We'll go on and we'll have a look at another variation now, arising here. If instead of knight f6, the Miesi's and the Smit variations, black can play bishop to c5. This is known as the classical variation, when white protects the knight with bishop e3. Black plays queen f6 to attack the knight again. White defends it with c3, and black develops. White develops here with bishop e3, and a game to watch here is again Kasparov versus Short in Linares 1993, a win for Kasparov in this classical variation of the Scotch. If white has another move here rather than the bishop move, can move his knight back to c2. This is known as the Meitner variation of the Scotch, and a game to watch here would be Blackburn versus Beer in 1883. So that's to talk about the classical Scotch and the Meitner Scotch, and now go back to the main Scotch line again and show the Steinitz Scotch. And this Steinitz Scotch involves an early queen move, queen h4. This is Wilhelm Steinitz, a world champion's favourite move against the Scotch. If black tries to defend the e4 pawn with the knight c3, black can come in with the bishop to bishop b4 on the pin, and this e-pawn is not defended very well and often will fall. And as a very quick example, I want to just load up Karjakin versus Malanin 2001, fairly well known game in the Scotch variation, and just show the attacking possibilities in the Scotch Steinitz, and that's both for black and for white. This was Steinitz's favourite defence against the Scotch, and here's Karjakin versus Malanin. Slightly different move order, gets to the Scotch Steinitz variation here, and now Karjakin attacks Malanin's queen, and keeps attacking Malanin's queen, keeps attacking it, and Malanin decides to put the queen to the other side of the board, which is a bit out of play, and Karjakin plays an amazing knight sacrifice to break up the king safety rather, and now keeps checking the king. He's seen all these checks, keeps checking the king, attacking the king, and he's got lots of moves, and here he plays a very subtle move to stop the black king retreating with the rook to h6 rank. Malanin tries to swap off the queens, but Karjakin has better moves. Another king check puts difficulty for black, blocked by Malanin there, but if Malanin has to resign here because it's game over, it's checkmate soon for white. If black takes the bishop with the queen, simply white queen to h6 is checkmate. If black takes the bishop with the king, then Karjakin plays rook to g1 check. The king has to go on to the h file. The white queen will take off the black queen, possibly with a check, and the next move the white queen moves on to the h file with checkmate. And so that shows an exciting game in the Steinitz, and the Steinitz is a very exciting game just for both the black and white have to be prepared for that. So here we are, just showing the main moves of the Scotch opening again, my favourite opening. I hope you've enjoyed that video presentation of it. Thanks for watching.